I'm 54 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I had things figured out. I married young, raised 2 children, kept a tidy house, and stayed in my little lane. Love, for me, was always steady, never wild or unpredictable. I used to think those deep, soul-stirring moments belonged in books or movies, not real life, not mine. But last week, something happened that completely unraveled that certainty. And it all started while I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, still wearing my pajamas, with yesterday's mascara smudged under my eyes. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, one of those heavy, gray ones that makes the whole house feel like it's wrapped in a wool blanket. The kind of morning where the sound of rain on the windows makes you want to crawl back under the covers and forget the world exists. I was in my plaid flannel pajama bottoms and an old Cornell University sweatshirt that had belonged to my ex-husband. I hadn't planned on seeing anyone that day. The house was quiet. I had just made my second cup of coffee and was halfway through folding the laundry when I heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery. I peered through the peephole, and there he was, my son Daniel. Now, you need to know something about Daniel. He's 32, lives across town with his girlfriend, and rarely shows up unannounced. He's always been the thoughtful type, the kind of man who texts before he calls. Seeing him there, standing on the porch with his hair damp from the rain, holding nothing but his phone in one hand and a worried expression on his face, it jolted me. I opened the door quickly. "Dan, what's going on? Are you okay?" I asked. Yeah. I needed to see you. Do you have a minute?" "Of course. Come in. You're soaked." He stepped inside, brushing droplets from his jacket. I noticed how tense he looked, his shoulders tight, his jaw set like he was trying hard to keep something in. He didn't even take his shoes off, which was unusual for him. I closed the door behind him and gestured toward the couch. "I was just folding towels. Ignore the mess," I said, trying to lighten the mood. He gave a half smile and sat down, but I could see he wasn't there for small talk. I brought over his favorite mug, filled with fresh coffee, still in my pajamas, hair unbrushed, slippers squeaking slightly on the hardwood floor. I sat across from him and waited. The rain kept tapping the windows, filling the silence between us. He finally looked up, and his eyes were different, softer, but stormy. "Mom," he began, I had a fight with Claire." "Oh," I said, surprised. "Is everything all right?" "No," he sighed. "Not really. I left. I don't know if I'm going back." The words hit me like a gust of wind. Daniel and Claire had been together for 6 years. She was practically family by now. He rubbed his hands together, fidgeting. I leaned in gently. "What happened?" He hesitated. "It's complicated. We've just been going in circles. I needed to breathe. I needed someone who understands me." Something in the way he said that last sentence made me pause. There was a look in his eyes I hadn't seen before, almost like a boy asking for permission to cry. He was always composed, always polite, but in that moment he was just my son, vulnerable and looking for comfort. I reached out instinctively and placed my hand over his. "You are always welcome here, Daniel, no matter what." He didn't speak. He just looked at my hand, then up at me, and something shifted in the air. That quiet, invisible change when two people realize they're not who they were 5 minutes ago. I could feel the warmth from his palm, how tightly he held mine. His breathing slowed. I felt my own heartbeat tick up, just slightly. It was the kind of moment you don't plan, you don't expect. You just feel it. Like a thread pulling two hearts closer without either of you really knowing why. He didn't let go of my hand, not immediately. And I didn't pull away, not right away. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just charged, like the stillness before a summer storm. And that was the moment that changed everything. I wish I could say I let go first, that I laughed it off, stood up, and told him he was welcome to stay the night in the guest room like I always had. But I didn't. I just sat there, holding his hand, feeling the weight of emotions I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. There was a flicker of something in Daniel's eyes, hesitation, maybe even guilt, but also something deeper, like recognition. I pulled my hand back slowly, trying to ground myself. "I'm sorry," I said, barely above a whisper. "For what?" he asked. "For letting things get confusing." He looked at me carefully, like he was reading the edges of my words, the way he used to study my face as a little boy when he was nervous about telling the truth. "I'm not confused, Mom," he said gently. That word, Mom, it grounded me again, pulled me back into my skin. I stood up quickly, smoothing my sweatshirt, suddenly hyper-aware of how rumpled I looked. I turned to grab the laundry basket, but my hands trembled a little. "I think maybe you just need rest," I said. "I'll make up the bed in the guest room." But he didn't move. He sat there watching me, still holding his coffee mug in both hands like it was the only thing anchoring him. "Do you ever feel like you're just living the life people expected of you?" he asked. The question stopped me cold. "Yes," I answered without turning around. I felt the room shift again, quietly. His voice was softer when he continued. "Claire said I'm too much like you. That made me turn." "Like me?" "She said I hold things in, that I'm careful, too careful, that I don't let myself want what I really want." I stepped back toward the couch. "Is she right?" He looked up at me then, his eyes clear and tired. "I don't know." I sat down again. There was space between us this time, but not much. Just a pillow, really. I leaned back, watching the rain slide down the glass like tiny rivers. "You always were the thoughtful one," I said. "Even as a kid, you used to line your toy cars up in perfect rows and cry when one went missing." He smiled. "I still do that, you know. With tools now." We both laughed softly, and it felt warm, even if the air between us was thick with things unsaid. "I was like that too," I continued. "I used to follow all the rules. I was afraid to disappoint anyone. Your dad. Well, we made it work for a long time, but not because we were deeply in love. It was stability. Predictable. And I stayed because I thought that was what I was supposed to do." Daniel nodded, quietly absorbing every word. "I think I forgot how to want something just for me," I added, more to myself than to him. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he set the coffee mug down on the table and shifted slightly toward me. "You didn't disappoint me," he said. "Ever." That caught me off guard. A lump formed in my throat. "I know I wasn't always." "Warm," I said. "After the divorce, I tried to stay strong for you and your sister. I didn't realize I was also building walls." He placed his hand on mine again. This time, it didn't feel confusing. It felt grounding. "You don't need to be strong right now," he said. And maybe that was what I needed more than anything, to not be strong. To let someone, even my own son, see me without the armor. We sat like that for what felt like a long time. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Not out of sadness, but out of the sudden clarity that I wasn't as alone as I had convinced myself I was. The clock ticked softly. The washer in the laundry room hummed in the distance. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Eventually, I stood up. "I'll get the guest room ready," I said again, but this time with a little more steadiness. "Okay," he replied. "Thanks for listening." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Any time, sweetheart. Any time." As I walked down the hall, I realized my heart was beating faster than usual, not from fear or confusion, but from the quiet realization that connection can show up when you least expect it, even in your pajamas on a rainy Tuesday morning. And something about that both scared and comforted me. Because something had shifted for both of us. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The rain had stopped, but its rhythm still echoed in my head. The house was quiet again, too quiet. I could hear the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards, the soft hum of the fridge, and, faintly, Daniel moving around in the guest room. I kept replaying the day in my mind. His unexpected knock, the way he looked at me, the things we said and didn't say. I wasn't sure how to name the feeling, but it stirred something old in me. Not inappropriate, no, but deeply emotional. Something maternal and something more complex woven together in a way that made me ache with tenderness. At some point, I must have drifted to sleep. I woke up around 3 in the morning, thirsty and warm, the blankets tangled around my legs. I slipped on my robe and padded down the hallway toward the kitchen. As I turned the corner, I saw the glow of the stove light casting soft shadows across the room. And there he was, Daniel, sitting at the table with a glass of water, staring out the window into the dark. He turned when he heard me and smiled gently. "Couldn't sleep either." I shook my head. "Nope, my mind's been too loud." He pulled up the chair beside him. "Join me." I did. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was rich, comfortable in its stillness. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his voice quiet. I thought I'd feel more certain after leaving Claire, but I don't. I just feel unmoored. I nodded, understanding more than he knew. It's hard to walk away from something that made sense on paper. Even harder when you don't know what comes next. He looked at me, really looked. "That's how you felt with Dad, isn't it?" My breath caught a little. "Yes," I said. I knew it was over years before I left. But the idea of breaking everything we built, it terrified me. So I stayed, until staying started to feel like disappearing. He swallowed hard, his eyes glassy. "You were never invisible to me." The words landed like a soft blow, unexpected and deeply felt. "I always thought you were stronger than anyone else I knew," he added. "But maybe I never stopped to think how much that strength cost you." I looked down, blinking away the sting in my eyes. "It did cost me, Daniel. More than I realized. And now, I don't even know who I am when I'm not holding everything together." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine again, not with urgency, but with quiet care. "Maybe it's okay not to have it all figured out," he said. "Maybe just being here with each other is enough. For now." I didn't answer. I just let his hand rest over mine. I let myself feel the warmth, the comfort, the closeness that came without expectation. I miss feeling close to people, I admitted, my voice nearly cracking. Real closeness. Not the kind you fake at dinner parties or put on for family photos. The kind where you're seen, truly seen. Daniel's gaze didn't waver. "You're seen now." And in that moment, I felt it. That unspoken bridge between us, built from years of shared history, of silent strength and quiet wounds. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man with his own pain, his own confusion. And somehow, our separate loneliness had met in the same space. We sat like that for a while, two souls weathered by different storms, but sharing the same shelter. Eventually, I rose from the chair and said softly, "Come with me." He hesitated, then followed. We didn't speak as we walked down the hall. I opened the door to my room, the lamp casting a soft amber glow. I pulled the covers back and slipped in, facing the wall. A moment later, I felt the bed shift as he lay down behind me, clothed, still, quiet. He didn't touch me, not in any way that crossed a line. He simply lay there, breathing in rhythm with mine. It was strange, yes, but not wrong. There was no shame in the warmth, no guilt in the comfort, just two people who didn't want to feel alone tonight. And as I closed my eyes, I realized something. Sometimes love shows up in the least expected ways, not always romantic, not always tidy, but always real. That night, I didn't dream. I just breathed. The sun filtered through the curtains slowly the next morning, soft and golden. I opened my eyes and took a moment to remember where I was and who was beside me. Daniel was already awake, lying on his back, staring at the ceiling, his hands folded on his chest like he was in deep thought. The room was quiet, except for the occasional chirp of birds outside and the distant sound of a lawn mower somewhere down the block. I turned on my side and studied him for a moment. He looked peaceful, but there was a heaviness in his expression I recognized all too well, the kind that settles in after a long emotional night. "Good morning," I whispered. He turned his head slightly and smiled. "Morning." We stayed like that for a few seconds, the air between us gentle, almost sacred in its stillness. Then he sat up slowly, rubbing his neck. "I should probably get going," he said, his voice low. I nodded, propping myself up with a pillow. "You don't have to rush." "I know," he said, "but I think I need to face things. Claire, the apartment, everything." He stood and moved to the edge of the bed, his back to me. The weight of everything we'd shared, the vulnerability, the comfort, the confusion, hung in the air like fog. "I want to thank you," he said, not turning around, "for last night, for just being there. You didn't make it easy," I teased gently. He chuckled, finally turning to face me. "I never do." I got up and wrapped my robe tighter around me. I crossed the room and placed a hand on his arm. "Whatever happens next," I said, "just remember that it's okay to be unsure. Life doesn't come with a guidebook. We figure it out one mess at a time." He nodded. "I think I've been scared of messing up, of making the wrong choice." "We all are," I said. "But sometimes the wrong choice teaches you more than standing still ever could." His eyes searched mine again, and for a moment I saw that same flicker, the storm, the tenderness, but it was softer now, like he had found a bit of clarity. He hugged me then, holding me tightly. Not as a boy needing his mother, not as a man looking for escape, but as someone simply grateful to be understood. I held him back, my chin resting lightly on his shoulder, breathing him in like I used to when he was small, and the world still felt manageable. When he pulled away, there was something steadier in his gaze. "I'll call you later." "Please do," I said with a warm smile. He grabbed his jacket and headed toward the door. I stood in the hallway, watching him go, the light catching in his hair, making him look, just for a second, like the little boy I used to chase through the backyard. And then he was gone. I sat on the couch afterward, crabbing my coffee in both hands, staring at the rain-streaked window. The house felt quieter again. Still, but not empty. Last night had stirred something in me, a recognition of how human we all are, how much we carry, and how rare it is to share that weight with someone without judgment. There were no easy labels for what happened, no neat boxes to place our emotions in. It wasn't about lines crossed or rules broken. It was about feeling seen, feeling safe, feeling real. And maybe that was the lesson. We're all just people, messy, longing, learning. Even at 54, I'm still figuring out what love looks like. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes it shows up in pajamas on a rainy morning with someone who needed you just as much as you needed them. I stood up, walked to the window, and opened it just a little. The fresh air hit my face, cool and clean. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was holding everything together. I just felt open. And maybe that's enough.